Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cast Royale, the Clash Royale podcast for casual players. I'm Joe, aka the Boom Man, and today we've got a super special guest, the legend himself, Colton Wall. Colton, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I've been dying to get you on the podcast, but I'm super excited to have you on this instant take. Guys, today we are going to be going through the 212 balance changes that Supercell just came out with earlier today. We're going to talk through each balance change, get Colton's perspective on what it's doing to the meta, if it's good, if it's bad, what they could have done differently, and then a grade at the end. Colton, you ready to go through these?
Yeah, of course.
All right, man. So let's go through the first one. The first one is the Mega Knight, the good old-fashioned Mega Knight. Spawn and jump damage, minus 25%, a huge decrease. The deployment radius has been reduced so that the impact won't hit past the bridge anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
So, Mega Knight definitely needed a nerf. It was dominating, but with the combination of an Inferno Dragon, a Skeleton Barrel, and a Bats nerf in the previous patch, or balance change rather, I find it a little bit odd that I think they hit him a little bit too hard. I'd say 25% on his jumps is a lot, since that is kind of like you try to get him jump most of the time, and that counts on his spawn damage, so that's guaranteed damage.
Sure.
I don't know how exactly that would interact with like Three Musketeers, for instance. Does he take 2 shots to kill them instead of 1 shot now? But it definitely makes him quite a bit weaker. I don't think it'll be awful, but I don't think he'll... Well, I mean, he was good in combination with, like, Zap Bait decks already with, like, Inferno Dragon, so his main deck archetype was already getting nerfed. And now, because other than Zap Bait, I think you mainly see him with, like... I don't even see Miner with him anymore. I see mainly, like, maybe Balloon decks. So I don't know what he would be played in anymore, especially after this big of a change. He needed the nerf, but he didn't need one that bad. I was thinking like a 5% health nerf or something.
Really?
Yeah, so I think they went a bit overboard, but I mean, he's not bad by any means. So the reason I wanted a health nerf is because he's only like 100 or 200 HP weaker than a P.E.K.K.A, and they're the same cost, right. And P.E.K.K.A is supposed to be like the tanky tank killer that is terrible on offense because it's really easily distracted.
Sure.
And P.E.K.K.A is also going to be better because P.E.K.K.A was mainly weak against swarm decks, actually, because it's so easily distracted. It's kind of the same thing that Prince was prone to. So we'll see both P.E.K.K.A and Prince being a lot stronger than this next patch, because these Zap Bait decks won't be as popular. That just have like Spear Goblins, Goblin Gang, Bats, Inferno Dragon. So we'll see more P.E.K.K.A and Prince. But yeah, I think they went a little bit overboard with Mega Knight. But I still think it needed a nerf, so I'm not unhappy about it either.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because when I saw the nerf originally, I was like, that's exactly what this card needed. But then when you mentioned it, they did just nerf the archetype that was causing this card to be so popular in the first place. So, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I just hope it doesn't become unviable anymore. At the end of the day,
yeah.
It's such a good card that to have it just be destroyed would be silly. So hopefully it just doesn't land in that realm,
Yeah, I'm not unhappy with the way they nerfed it. It was more so, I just feel like 25% is a really large portion of damage that he's going to be missing. Because I mean, that's 25% off of his spawn, and then he jumps 1 or 2 times usually after he's played. So it gives him a lot less value. But he needed a nerf. I just don't know if that was enough. But then again, his like normal damage is left untouched, so maybe it won't be as big a deal as I think it is. So I mean, we'll see how it pans out. He maybe use a new deck, we don't know, but he needed a nerf. I just think it was a bit much.
I agree. Cool. So let's jump into the next one. So the next one was to the newcomer, the Skeleton Barrel. Skeletons have been reduced from 8 count to 6 count. So this is a pretty big nerf. If you put it into percentage wise, it is a 25% nerf to the damage the skeletons could do over time, right? So what are your thoughts on this one?
So this is exactly how I think they hit the nail on the head with this one, because Skeleton Barrel prior to the death damage was actually pretty useless and no one used it. I think that's a big reason to the popularity of Bats and minions, so the death damage actually made it viable on defense as well as offense. Also, it kills bats countered it so hard that it could actually like kill them and then have to be dealt with, as opposed to bats fully countering it. So I think death damage makes it a more versatile card. I don't think cards should be one-dimensional. If they are, they're usually either OP or really bad. So I'm happy they made him more versatile, the card more versatile. So death damage was good. I didn't want them to nerf that. And then if you use a skeleton barrel on a single tower, it just barely reaches the tower and then drops on it. If you had nerfed the HP of the actual barrel at all, I think it's by design for Clash Royale that it just gets to the tower. Because if you've ever played with even like a level, if you played tournament standard with a barrel that's one level under, it doesn't reach the tower. It like is 2 tiles away and then breaks. So I think that's by design. So I don't think you can nerf the health. It should be a threat to a tower if you just leave it alone.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you put it that way, right? Because I see a lot of people on Twitter, all over Twitter right now, saying that they shouldn't have touched the skeleton count. They should have just either reduced the health of it or gotten rid of the death damage. But to your points, right, if they reduce the HP, it won't make it to the tower, won't be as impactful. And two, if they just remove the death damage, then the bats or minions or even a minion horde, it's almost irrelevant to play the skeleton barrel when it's being countered by a 2-cost flying troop, right? Yeah,
it takes away the versatility as well. So I think death damage would have killed the card if you took it away. I think health is kind of like a design flaw. I think another thing is I don't think Clash Royale was going to do that, because I think they did that on purpose where it reaches the tower. So I thought taking away a skeleton or two was the perfect way to nerf it. I have a group of pros that we are discussing balance changes now, and we are able to send it to Clash Royale from time to time. We actually didn't expect this update to be so quick, so we didn't get to do it this time, which I'm very happy they did, and I'll give the grade at the end, but I do think they did a good job. But yeah, I think that was the perfect way to nerf it. That's what we would have suggested. I probably would have suggested 1 skeleton to start with, but I don't think 2 is overkill by any means.
Sure.
The only reason I would have suggested 1 skeleton, though, is because I would have suggested a bigger nerf for Inferno Dragon. But we can get to that in a second. But overall, it was a good change. I like this one, for sure.
Cool. So let's jump into the Inferno Dragon now. We'll skip the night. We'll do that one next. So let's do the Inferno Dragon, right? So the change to this guy was that it switches between targets slower. I don't know how much slower. They didn't go into that much detail.
Yeah, no stats to back it up. So we don't know until we actually play it.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on this? Like, I know a lot of people think very strongly about the Inferno Dragon, right? Like, it's got too much health, or it does too much damage, it changes targets too quick. Like, what's your view on the Inferno Dragon, and if this change was what it needed to be less viable, but still viable in the meta?
So I think this is good just because they also nerf. I mean, Inferno Dragon is almost exclusively used in Zap bait decks because it pairs well with them. It gives the card extra viability because they're not going to have Zap in hand as often, or it baits it for like Skeleton Barrel. So once again, when you nerf the cards it's used in, it's used usually with Mega Knight, and it's because the kind of classic combos are P.E.K.K.A, Electro Wizard, and Mega Knight Inferno Dragon.
Right.
So I think, in combination with other cards being nerfed that it's usually used along with, I think it's fine to not over the top nerf it. Like I said, I would have preferred they nerf maybe Skeleton Barrel with just like 1 skeleton and then nerf the Inferno Dragon more, but this could be a big nerf. It just depends on how slow it targets. Because I mean, if it latches on to like a goblin that's distracting for like a P.E.K.K.A, and then it takes it like a full second to lock onto another goblin, then it's gonna be a really awkward card, and it's not gonna be that good. It just depends on how much slower is in this case. I do think any nerf was necessary though.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I feel like they could have said like slightly slower. At least then maybe we could have compared it to the length of time that they. Yeah. Do you remember when the battle ram got slowed down? It was like it's slightly longer before it starts to like build up or start charging, and it was like 0.2 to 0.3 seconds or whatever it was. But
that was actually a pretty big nerf for battle ram.
Yeah, it was a huge nerf, and now people don't use it as much, or if they do, it's in those like 3 Musketeer decks, right? But I guess I don't get the point of not putting the actual stats next to the change. To me, it just seems silly.
So I think maybe, the little like stat sheet they have in game, I guess that's not like like a stat that would be included in that situation, like retargeting duration or something. But that's a weird, in that case, that's a weird way to nerf it, because that's not even a stat that you like quantify to the player base. So I find that odd, and it's kind of making a card clunkier in a way. I don't know. Yeah. Isn't that like a problem that Inferno Dragon used to have and they fixed it? I feel like maybe.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like it used to get distracted it used to get distracted too easily and been distracted for too long. So they made it. I forget if they gave any sort of indication as to how quick it was increasing the target speed. But you're 100% right. They're kind of like tailoring it back now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have just liked to see a health nerf. Like, currently, it doesn't die to, like, lightning zap, which is odd. It shouldn't die to lightning.
Cost card, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't die to lightning. Like, it needs to be tankier than, like, a musketeer. But it should die to, like, a lightning zap, I think. So just make it have, like, I think it has 1,100, 1,200 health or something. Make it have, like, 1,000.
I forget the number, but it definitely doesn't die to a lightning. I know that only because I get killed by this card way too often.
Yeah, lightning has like 850, 60 damage or something to troops, and it has like 1,100, I think.
Oh, that makes sense.
I'm not exact. I know lightning does 800 something, but the other thing that I actually am going to be suggesting to them even after these balance changes that we talked about with some other pros is I would really like to see lightning buffed. And I think that would, if Inferno Dragon is too strong, I think that would, the way I want to buff it rather would be a big counter to Inferno Dragon. I don't want to see lightning have its its radius increase to the same thing it used to be. The main reason being it was too automatic against buildings. Like using with Hog Lightning when it was popular, you just play Hog and then you lightning anything they play. Because there's
so true.
there's no building placement that can pull a Hog, because the one tile that was like anti lightning only worked on Giant and Golem because Hog can bypass it.
Right, got a smaller aggro radius. Yep.
Yeah, so and I don't think you can increase the damage because it's like perfect right now with how it counters Elixir Collector, and a few other interactions. You don't want it one-shotting even higher HP units or.
So then
I just think increasing the stun.
What's the secret way to do it then?
Yeah,
you can't not say what you're not going to do and then not do the real thing.
I think increasing stun duration would be the way to do it.
So instead of like 0.5 a full second or what?
Yeah, a full second. Oxalate didn't think that would be enough. He thought maybe even like 1.25 or 1.5.
Sure.
So I honestly think that's fine because Rocket is supposed to be like the heavy damage spell that's hard to hit.
Right.
I think giving utility to lightning would be interesting. Poison is way too dominant right now. It's like using like 90% of decks that have a big spell.
I would totally agree with that. We my brother and I do a meta check every week on the show, and Poison has just dominated the top of the ladder. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So what we were kind of suggesting is instead of nerfing Poison, is just make the other spells better. I think Rocket still has its niche where it's good, but I think Lightning and Fireball are pretty bad right now. Fireball is really only used on ladder because it's a rare. It's the easiest to level up.
That's a good point.
So what we suggested was for Lightning, increase the stun duration to 1.25, 1.5 seconds. Give it the utility. It can be a little bit better on defense. It can be better on offense, but it's not automatic and like annoying to play against like it used to be. I think that's why I got nerfed in the first place, was because it was just kind of automatic. And then for Fireball, we kind of went over the things. You can't increase the damage because that makes Musketeers get way too hard countered by 3 Musketeers.
Right, you can't play them. Right.
Yeah, so you can't make it one-shot 3 Musketeers, so you can't increase the damage. And that is kind of the thing with Poison. It does more damage over time or whatever. So you can't increase the damage. So the only things you can really touch are either the radius, make it hit a larger area. But I don't really like it hitting a larger area because then it has the same like radius as either lightning or poison, and I feel like they're intentionally, because if you look at their radiuses, it's like 2.5, 3, 3.5. So maybe that's why the nerf lightning is for like consistency reasons. I don't know.
Right.
But they all go up by 0.5. They're supposed to be distinct for a reason. They shouldn't be too close to each other. They're used for different situations, different types of decks. So the way I think you should buff it is just make it travel faster. The same thing they did with arrows before.
That's a really, really interesting suggestion. I never would have thought of that.
I like
That's
it.
a really good
I like it better because Fireball is instant damage, right? And the decks that use it are things that need instant damage, like Expo and Hog, to get through a push.
Right.
So if it's a little bit faster now, it becomes better in the decks that it's already used in.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be a huge buff, but like if you launch it at your opponent's tower, maybe it gets there like 0.25 seconds or 0.5 seconds faster. Because that makes a big difference. Like if you're trying to counter, if your opponent uses Mini Horde to counter a Hog or something, then you can Fireball it. And I think that would be a really good way to bring it back in the meta because it's really bad right now.
Yep. No, I totally agree. All right, cool. That was a good summary right there. So let's go into what I would call the most controversial of them all, in my opinion at least, which is the Knight. The Knight had its hit points reduced by 6%. Some say this was already balanced. Some say this wasn't necessary. What are your thoughts?
I feel like that, if they're going to make that change, I feel like it came like 2 months late. I feel like the Knight has decreased in popularity since it was like the best mini tank in the game.
Sure.
I think it's used pretty evenly to Ice Golem right now. Or at least, I mean, I would have to look at statistics, but I feel like it's in check. I don't think anyone... It's also one of those cards that like no one complains about. But I don't see why it needed a nerf. I think it was fine, because now you're just going to see no one's ever going to run Knight anymore. They're just going to run Ice Golem, or they're going to run a different deck entirely. So
right, and
I don't like it.
With the 6% hit point nerf, it now dies to a Big Mama P.E.K.K.A. in 2 swings instead of 3 swings. So it's just, like, to me, it just seems like... some may say that 1 swing isn't enough, or is not that big of a deal, but if that were the case, then they wouldn't have gone back and forth with removing the Larry skeleton back like 5 different times, right? 1 swing is a lot of time in Clash Royale, which is a game of milliseconds.
And it's a tank. So
it's a tank, right?
HP nerf is like the biggest nerf you can give it. It's like you don't play Knight for its damage. You use it. I mean, you do because it does a little bit of damage too. But it's like, why would I ever take Knight over Ice Golem now? Because I'll look that up as we're talking, but Knight doesn't have that much more health than Ice Golem in the first place, and they're used in similar like positions. So that's really odd.
I think it's about 300 HP, 3 to 400 HP that the Knight has, but with this 6% decrease, it probably goes down to around, I think, between 250 and 300. But also now the Ice Golem has so much more value because it has closer HP to it. It's 2 costs now, and it counters minions, mega minions, and the death damage obviously kills the bats and skeletons. So it's just like you're getting so much more value for close amount of health now. It's just, what's the point?
Yeah, so that was an interesting change. That's the only one that I actually didn't like. So that's good. And I'm not saying they have to like do exactly what we suggest. They have full right to do like a change that throws you kind of off from time to time.
Sure.
But that seems like an odd one to me. But then again, I mean, Knight is a really solid card, so maybe it was it had it coming. So I'm not angry at it, but it was odd for sure.
To me, they could have hit the damage over time a bit. Like you said, health for this card is the card. Without the health, it's just not worth being used. So,
I just don't think I don't think it'll be used by pros especially anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And you would know more than me. I mean, I'm just a casual guy over here trying to have a little bit of fun. So that makes sense. So, all right, let's go into the next one. So the next one, this was, I guess, a little bit out of the blue, but I guess it made sense when I saw it. This one to the Valkyrie, hit speed was increased from 1.5 seconds to 1.4 seconds. So not a huge increase in speed, but it's attacking faster now. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I was kind of surprised. You know, when they last balance change, when they buffed the HP of Mini P.E.K.K.A. and Lumberjack, I was surprised that Valkyrie... Oh, yeah, 7%. I was surprised Valkyrie wasn't included in that group because they're all 4-cost cards that are very similar. They just do slightly different jobs. One, it does AoE. One does more damage. One runs fast and has rage. So I thought that was weird that she wasn't included in that group. I'm not opposed to her getting a buff, but she's still going to be bad. So no one's going to use her still. That's not enough. So maybe it's one of those cards like, I also don't think Bomber, Wizard, Rage, Bomb Tower, Heal should be buffed. I think they're kind of like low arena cards that can be fun, but they shouldn't be used in competitive. Mainly Heal
Sure.
and Rage in that category.
Yep.
And Bomb Tower, unless they fixed it. They would have to. A lot of those cards are too binary. Like, they do one thing, and they're very basic. I don't think if you made them really good, they would be interesting. I don't think they make for interesting gameplay.
Right.
I mean, that's why legendaries are cool when they're good. It also makes Supercell money, so that makes sense. But they make for more fun gameplay. Like, Mega Knight is a much more fun card to watch than Valkyrie, for example.
Right. She just walks across the map pretty slowly.
Yeah, and the
and
thing is,
sometimes.
she won't be good unless she gets a faster movement speed, because she offers like no offensive threat whatsoever.
Nah.
And she's really only good against like Graveyard. I don't know, but I think it's fine for her to not be good. But I mean, yeah, small buff, it's whatever, kind of.
I think the only time I've ever seen her viable was when the trifecta decks were around and she was getting pushed to the tower.
Yeah,
you know, in front of the
she was like an Ice Golem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now there's the Ice
Before
Golem,
Ice
so what's the
Golem,
point of spending
yeah.
four?
When there were less
spending 4 elixir.
Yeah, when there were less cards and she was better. She kind of got power creeped, where new cards are just better at doing the same job, less cost, that type of thing.
Right. Right. Okay, cool. So let's that's the Valkyrie. So let's go into the next one, which is the Bandit. So the Bandit had its minimum dash range from 4 tiles to lock onto something to 3.5. So in theory, it can dash to closer targets now. What are your thoughts on this one?
It needed a buff, I think. I think that was like the perfect way to buff it too. Didn't they change that before? I feel like it used to dash more easily, and now it dashed. But was that a bug fix, or?
Yeah, it was
remember?
a bug fix where previously it was supposed to, I'm making up numbers because I don't remember.
It would double, it would double
5.
dash. Yeah,
it would just lock onto like towers from like 2 tiles away or whatever it was.
Yeah, I remember. It was, so the problem was if it had already dashed once, and then that thing instantly died, then it would just like dash again, I think. Something like that.
Oh gosh.
Which was really annoying because you would play something far away, or I mean, really close to it, and then it would still dash. So that was weird.
Right.
So that was a good bug fix. But this is like the perfect way to buff her, I think, because I mean, her dash is like it's what you play her for. Like late game, if you've already taken a tower, you play her in the middle, and you try to get that dash on the tower when you know your opponent doesn't have a distract troop or is low on elixir. That's where her whole concept revolves around that dash, and she was bad lately. So that was like perfect way to buff her. It also separates her more from Ghost, because especially when Ghost was before the nerf, it was just a better version of the Bandit. So I really like the separation of like use of use. So she's more about her dash now. And he's more about the invisibility mechanic, and that was a good way to buff her. It just makes her dash a little bit more often. There was really awkward situations sometimes where you're like, okay, she's like 4 tiles away or like extremely close to it, and she's still like right after you played her, and then she still runs all the way up to it. So just that little bit of change will be a good change. I don't think she's gonna be like amazing, but she'll be a little bit more viable.
Right. No, I'd agree, and I think to your point before, like if you would have hit the health or the damage, that's not really what she needs, right? You need her to dash, not for those other things. So yeah, I think that all makes sense.
It's what makes the card exciting, and you want to play. If you're gonna buff a card that's weak, you wanna buff it in a way that makes it more exciting for the players. I mean, I'm a pro, but I think just in general, like the game is more fun when cool card mechanics are seen more often, right. As long as they're not just broken or hard to defend. So
you mean like when the Night Witch first came out? No big deal.
That was so bad.
Royal Ghost, rather, when that first came out, no big deal.
Yeah. Royal Ghost was nothing compared to Night Witch. Like,
oh no, they trucked
Night Witch was so
like
good
3 times before that thing ever became a balanced card.
Yeah, and then Ghost got a nerf, and it's not that good anymore. I think towards the end, people actually didn't even mind it that much.
It's too funny.
It needed a nerf. It actually got nerfed a little bit too hard, but I'm not angry because it was too good.
Yep. No, I'm with you. So let's jump into the last true change, which is the Dark Prince. To me, this one reminded me a bit of the Valkyrie, but the hit speed went down from 1.4 seconds to 1.3, so he attacks a little bit quicker, and the HP went up by 5%. So this was a pretty big increase in viability, I think, for the Dark Prince.
Yeah, I think it'll be used now. We'll have to see how.
Simply, I think it'll be used. That's it.
I mean, it will. Well, I mean, they buffed it either the previous patch or two balance changes ago, where it's been slowly getting better. And I actually have seen it used a little bit already. And Prince is going to be a lot better now that Swarm is nerfed. I don't know that Double Prince is actually a good combination. But I think Dark Prince could be used more often. There's like a Three Musketeer deck that likes Dark Prince because it gives the deck AoE.
Oh my gosh.
And then it also charges. Yeah. Because it's a good pressure card. It's cheaper than Prince. It's not as expensive, and it helps kill swarms, which is what Three Musketeers struggles against a lot. So I think it'll be good in Three Musketeers. It could possibly be good in other pressure decks, minors maybe. But I think it'll be good. I think it'll be used by even pro players. It's similar to how they nerfed Prince, and Prince is good now. So these accumulation of buffs, I think, will make it good. And it's good against Swarm, so it'll be interesting to see how good it is now that Swarm is used less. So maybe it won't be good depending on the meta, but it's gonna be used, so it'll be interesting. And I think it's a cool card. I mean, speaking to the Valkyrie point earlier, I think it's very similar to Valkyrie, it's just cooler. So I'm glad they buffed Dark Prince and not Valkyrie. Yeah, and a shield.
And a shield, right? Like it doesn't die. It doesn't die to a rocket. I mean, half its HP won't even die to a rocket because it's got the shield. It charges up. It's got a really cool noise once it starts, charging up. It's just an all-around much more fun card to play in the arena.
Yeah. And the health helps a lot because it's pretty squishy once you get the shield off. So getting it a little bit tankier is really good for it. And the fact that it does have that shield is going to make it, because it can put opponents in awkward situations to where like you give them like fireball value, and it still, if they don't have enough elixir, it'll still get to the tower because it doesn't kill it or even a rocket or anything. So
that's a very good point.
Shield mechanics are really cool, I think.
Yeah, I love those on the guards and this. Yeah, exactly.
And it's not overused, so that's cool.
Yeah, no, and hopefully, I hope that these changes, I mean, what we always hope out of balance changes is that they actually balance the meta and that they don't just cause things to become broken and unused or broken and used way too much, right?
Yeah.
Like if all we see in the arena is Dark Princes now, it would just become more tedious. And like, what's the point of that, right?
Yeah, so it's a good like addition to the meta, and I think it's a good card. So I'm happy they buffed it. Oh, speaking of like cards that like can be buffed, I had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the reasoning behind why you can't buff heal is because it makes the game very rock paper scissors, and the essence of poison is, especially when poison's the best card in the game, poison gets hard countered by heal, and that makes fireball beats heal, because I mean heal's usually used in Three Musketeers and Minion Horde decks. So when that card was good, it made fireball the counter to that deck, but then poison beats almost every fireball deck, and fireball so fireball loses the poison, beats heal, and then it's kind of like a triangle to where if you don't have the right deck composition, your big spell alone in that meta would decide who wins. So that's why cards like heal are really toxic for like a meta. That's why that card can't be good in my opinion. And then other cards just aren't cool, so they shouldn't be good. But I mean, mainly heal has that problem. I'm glad they fixed it though. It should stay bad. It should be a novelty card, same as clone.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, for competitive play, it's just not fun to watch. Like, at the end of the day, if it's just A beats B, B beats C, and C beats A, like, what's the point of strategy and
matchup dependent? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with you. I guess the last change is not really a change. I guess it was more of like an FYI, more to come. The Magic Archer is preparing for the arena. I'm not sure if you know anything about this card, but I know absolutely nothing other than the fact that Clash Royale posted a pretty cool picture of it. One in the balance changes is like a sneak peek, and two on Twitter. But other than that, I'm excited for this thing.
Yeah, so I saw that it was a legendary. I mean, not any of these are necessarily true, but that was a legendary, and I saw some leaked gameplay, maybe. But I mean, I don't really like to speculate on new cards until I've actually seen the official gameplay and then like what they actually do. Right. So I mean, I like cards that are new, so fun to play. But
bring them on. The more the merrier.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they don't come out like Night Witch. So I mean, I think. What's a good example of a card release that was for a legendary, I guess? Mega Knight when it first came out was fine. It was strong. Yeah. I mean, it's been strong, but it's not broken. It's not OP. I don't know. Cards that have relative strength or they're decent, but not overpowered. Lumberjack is a good place for a legendary.
I feel like a Lumberjack, yep.
But I mean, hopefully, I'm just hoping they don't make it too good. But hopefully it's interesting. I don't really know much about it though, so I can't make any opinions on how I think it'll be used or anything like that until we actually get more info.
Yeah, no, same here. I guess to your point earlier, right? Legendaries add much more versatility into the game, and I think as long as that continues to happen, this should be totally fun and totally fine. So I'm excited to see what it is. So I guess with that being said, we've covered all the balance changes. You said you liked them, but what's your grade and why?
I would give an A- probably, or probably like an A-.
Pretty good.
Yeah, this is one of the better balance changes. I think people complain about every single balance change because everyone thinks they could do it better. But this has been one of the ones.
Royal Giant, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is they literally only did one thing that was weird to me, which was Night. Everything else was perfect. I would say I did want a Goblin Hut nerf. I wanted them to revert the 5% HP buff they gave it. And the reason I think that is because it makes Goblin Hut being meta makes Poison meta. Because Poison counters it better than any other spell due to the fact that it also kills the troops that are coming out of it and limits it to like 2-3 goblins. If you fireball a Goblin Hut, that's a terrible trade because it spawns like 6 goblins or something, or 5 or something crazy like that. Because it doesn't kill the actual goblins, it just damages the hut. So it's a bad trade. It's a very easy card to use. It's like Elixir Collector without the actual threat of being punished because you played in the middle, and if you try to punish it, pulls the cards to it and makes it easier to defend. So I would have liked to see that nerf, like either a 5% HP nerf or make it spawn like 2 less spear goblins, and then that would have been perfect. But they decided to leave it untouched, I think, with a Mega Knight nerf that makes it better too.
Yeah.
So and it really wasn't used in bait decks anymore. It was used in like poison decks. It is the one card that kind of keeps Graveyard alive, because Graveyard was trash until people started figuring out that Goblin Hut was good, and then Graveyard is good because it baits poison for Graveyard.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah, because if you don't use poison on it, then they get up. So if you save poisons for Graveyards, then they just use like 3 huts, and then you get overwhelmed.
How do you defend against the goblins?
Yeah, so that's it's really good in Graveyard, which I like Graveyard, so that's kind of good. But I've really never liked Goblin Hut, so I don't think any hut should ever be like meta. I think they should be like fringe viable. Like, I don't think Furnace or Barb Hut are bad, but they're not amazing either. I don't like how annoying they are when they're the best cards in the games. And every hut has been viable at one point, and at every point I've hated like all 3 of them. So
spawner decks.
Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of annoying. Not even just like straight up spawner decks, but decks that are actually viable with them. Chip decks usually are kind of annoying. So I would have really liked to see. So that's why it's not like an A+. I really would have liked to see a Gob Hut nerf. And then I would really like to see in the future, which maybe they'll listen to our suggestions, I would like to see Fireball and Lightning buffed so they're actually good.
Sure.
And then arrows I don't think there's anything you can really do with arrows. I think they're okay on ladder. But I mean, like, arrows are only good against minion horde. Like, that's the only reason you would ever take arrows. So
right, within your deck.
Yeah, so I don't really think there's any hope for like arrows, but I mean Zaplog have a good place in the meta. I just think Lightning and Fireball kind of need to be able to compete with Poison, because it's not like they would either outshine Poison or they would make it Rock Paper Scissors, because those spells are all different and are used in different types of decks. So I would like, because Lightning is good in beatdown typically, or Hog, and then Fireball is good in Hog, Expo, and then like really quick pressure decks maybe.
You really get that rock paper scissors when the spell type counters another spell type, and those spell types drive the specific archetype. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, but yeah, no, I agree. I think Rob and I talk on the podcast a lot about the Goblin Hut or the Goblins or the Goblin Gang, and we thought that originally the best way to nerf those guys would just be to nerf the actual Spear Goblins themselves. Like, we never thought that we'd say that out loud, that the Spear Goblins needed to be nerfed, but if you nerf those, then we only thought that because the Mega Knight Spellbait decks were so prevalent, right? But now if they're not going to be because of all these changes, it's less the Spear Goblins and more the Hut.
Yeah, because I mean, Spear Goblins aren't going to be used now. They're only good in those bait decks that had every bait card in them: Skeleton Barrel, Inferno Dragon, Spear Gobs, Goblin Gang, Bats. So yeah,
right.
It's like it takes 5 cards to make that good. If you nerf like 3 of them, it's not going to be good anymore. And it was only their synergy that made them good. Like, Spear Goblins by themselves are trash, but when they bait Zap and they have the pressure and the cycle of that deck, they became a threat. With every other card in that deck actually nerfed, I don't think Spear Gobs will be used anymore. I don't think Goblin Gang is going to be overwhelming. I think it'll be used in log bait, but nothing crazy. It won't be used. I mean, the Goblin Gang's still going to be good, but I don't think Spear Gobs deserve a nerf. I don't think Gob Gang deserves another nerf. If you nerfed Spear Gobs, that is. So I really just think Hut should have been nerfed. I'm surprised they didn't touch it, but I don't think it's going to be overwhelming. And I mean, the longer it's meta, the more people figure out how to counter it. But I don't even dislike it so much that it's going to say good. I dislike the fact that it's going to make poison a requirement. So I would have liked to see. I think if they buff lightning, not necessarily. Like I said, I don't want the spells to be buffed in damage, because I really liked when they nerfed damage to towers. Because I hated spell cycling. I didn't like. I mean, it's okay when like you've gotten their tower down to like 400 HP. Like, sure, finish their tower off with spells and defend. But if you start spell cycling when their tower is at half HP with rockets. And then you throw 3 rockets consecutively to win the game. Yeah. I think that's disgusting to watch.
Game over, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of nasty. So I was happy with that nerf. So like the same thing. I don't want spell cycling and multiple big spells in a deck to be a thing. So I don't think they should buff damage. I just think they should buff the uniqueness of Fireball. So like make it travel faster, and then Lightning, make it stun more. And then also, if Lightning's good, it counters Hut. And Fireball would be more effective against it if it was faster, because you could more reactively use it.
I totally agree with all that.
Yeah, so
totally agree.
I think
so. You said A-, right?
Yeah, A-, B+, around that range.
So I think I would agree. I think, to your point, I didn't like the Knight, and because I didn't get it and I didn't think it needed to be, but we'll see how it actually pans out. And I do think that the Goblin Hut was a big one. But I guess that being said, right, if they're going to be pumping out these balance changes slightly more frequently, depending on the feedback from the community or from the pros like you who are giving them it, or just because they see the win rates and use rates through the roof for certain cards or too low for other cards, then it might not matter all that much anyway. I think these more frequent balance changes are probably the right idea.
A lot, yeah. Yeah, if they do a balance change like every 3 weeks, I think that would be perfect. Every month even. Just do it. I mean, I like 3 weeks. I think 2 weeks is too little, because without any actual changes, from like day 1 to week 2, you'll see entirely different decks like in GCs. And like on Stats Royale, like as the popular decks, because like as people figure out what's good, the meta kind of evolves, and then new decks evolve to counter the old ones.
But let me ask you a question.
I think that's a really interesting progression. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. If we were to say, okay, they're going to give balance changes every 3 weeks, they have balance. The new seasons are every 30 days, right? So it's like a full month.
Maybe do it every month. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Right, because otherwise it's possible that between over a cycle you could have 2 sets of balance changes within one given ladder season.
I think a month then. Yeah. And then try to sync it to where the new balance changes come like maybe a few days after the new season starts, instead of at the end. Because at the end,
I totally agree.
I don't think they've synced it up in the past. I think it's kind of just random. I'm
not
sure on that. Well, sometimes they throw in new cards at the end of seasons. Because I remember like Night Witch came out and then people maxed it to level 5 and used it to win that season.
Forget about the season. They introduced that thing in the middle of like CCGS or something.
That too. I was pissed. I think that was the season I didn't qualify, and it was because of Night Witch, actually. But then again, they released Mega Knight in the middle of the next CCGS, and I used it to qualify, so...
Yeah, well, you know, you take it when you can, and you don't take it when it works against you, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But, I mean, in general, in the future, hopefully they've learned their lesson. Don't release new cards when we're in the middle of important tournaments. Like, maybe...
Tournaments.
Do it, I mean, especially if it's your official event. Like, do it maybe at the beginning. Like, if it's a regular season, like, who cares? Throw it in.
Right.
But if it's in the middle of the playoff, or if it's in the middle of the qualifiers for the thing, then yeah, don't introduce new cards, because I think they will take the esports more seriously in the future, and hopefully they pay attention to that type of stuff. But yeah, I think monthly balance updates would be perfect, because previously I feel like they've waited like 2 or 3 months at a time. So
yeah,
even just a month in between would be awesome.
But I think to your point, they are taking esports more seriously. They are taking balance changes more seriously, and they are listening to the community. And they have been listening to the community. These things used to take 2 to 3 months sometimes before balance changes would come out. Now it's a span of 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks, and they're announcing technically a new card. So I am super excited to see how all this stuff kind of plays out over the next month or so.
Yeah, no, I'm super happy. It's so from when this drops to when it so when the actual update goes in, it's been less than 3 weeks since the last balance changes, and I think they hit like 80% of what they needed to hit, in my opinion and other pros' opinions. So this is a really good change. I like the fact that they did a balance change much earlier, because my initial thoughts was when they said the next update was going to be in April, January, yeah.
Yeah, I think they said March originally.
Like late March or April. Yeah.
April, yeah.
I was thinking we weren't going to get balance changes until April as well. So the fact that they did this was really cool. I was really happy with the fact that they did balance changes kind of randomly all of a sudden. And I like that they like leak it on Discord and stuff. That's kind of cool. Gets hype built.
Yeah. It's just like a little sprinkle here and a little sprinkle there. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that keeps the game hype. It's the kind of stuff that keeps people wanting to come back. Like stale metas where things are just overly dominant. It's not fun for casual players, and it's certainly not fun for the pros like you who want versatility at the top play of the game, right?
So they shaked it up. That's cool. I think they're learning and getting better, and they're still working on fresh content. I'd like to not get my hopes up for like big updates, but April sounds like they're gonna do something that's like unique, as opposed to like they're gonna add like some type of new mode that's not bad, like a competitive mode perhaps, or something new that'll actually get people more interested. I actually don't really care if it's competitive or more casual geared, as long as the interest in the game increases. Then they did their job,
right.
And that helps me. Helping
casual
players helps the competitive scene, because they're the ones who I mean, we're comprised of like 0.001% of the community. So the fact that there's a huge viewer base that actually cares about what we do is what makes it possible. So anything that they can do to help the game helps me and other pros. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think they're learning and they're getting better. So yeah, I'm really optimistic about the future for Clash Royale.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. And I can say, as a casual player and as a podcast host with my brother for just casual players within this community, that we live vicariously through you guys. So, you know, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show here, talk through these balance changes and what you think they mean for not only the game, but also the top play, the ladder, the esports, the things that we care about too, even though we're not in it. So really appreciate you taking the time. But Colton, if you could do me a favor and tell all of our fans, all of our listeners, anyone who's watching, how they can best find you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so YouTube, I am Colton W83, Twitch Colton W83 as well, and then Instagram Colton W83, and then Twitter is Colton_Wall.
And we will be sure to include all of those links into the description below. So guys, be sure to check Colton out. Colton, thank you again so much. And guys, we hope you like them. We hope you like the spotlight on the balance changes. Hopefully this helps put some little bit of clarification on it, and you can apply this into the meta, into the arena when they go live on 2/12. So Colton, thank you again, man. And guys, be sure to tune in next time for another hodgepodge of everything. Bada bada, boom.